All right. make sure it's on. I want to say one more niggun. Oh, Toby, can we record? As many of you know, I've been talking about it a lot this week, that very, very close friend of ours passed away this Motzei Shabbos. It was very, very intense. Very, very special neshama. Hanasar knows her longer than me. I know her for about 20 years. And she was a gem. She was a real believe. She really believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a very big thing to really believe in God. She really believed in Hashem, and she believed that the world has to be more colorful and more beautiful. And right before, a few minutes before she returned up to Shemaim, her husband called me. I was standing outside the hospital because I saw that she was about to. It was it. So I'm a kohen. I zoomed out of there, and he called me and he said, "Shlomo, remind me what our Tnaim Nigun was." I remember many years ago I found on a tape that Rabbi Shlomo wrote a song for when this couple had gotten married, engaged. Well, the Tnaim for their marriage, and he sang this when they had their engagement. He composed this when they had their engagement, and it's one of the last songs that was sung to her before she returned to Shamayim. What's crazy is that she spent the last 5 hours of her life surrounded by about 20, 30, 40 people coming in shifts, singing. People were just singing to her. And this is one of the last songs, and this is her nigun. This is her Tanaim nigun. Some of you know this nigun, actually. Rabbi Shlomo wrote this for her tonight. I think it was 1990, 91. That's the way she also left the world. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol na'eh b'dvaro. Last week in Yerushalayim, on Wednesday night, we have a shir. Sometimes I teach the same, it's in Hebrew. Sometimes I'll teach the same thing that we learn here in English, I'll translate it for 2 days later, and after learning it together and then translating it, so certain things become much more, they hit harder, they become a little bit more clearer. And some things remain a mystery, where you realize that you thought you understood it the first time, it's not that you understand it better, you just realize that it's still a mystery. Well, one thing that came up last week in Yerushalayim was kind of the prep for today's shir. Remember last week we were learning that there's a tremendous difference between someone that recognizes that they're a human being as opposed to someone who recognizes that they are created in Hashem's image. B'tzalmo, kidmuto. When you're created in God's image, it means you're more than just natural and attaching yourself to average nature. It means that you can expect of yourself and push yourself to reach beyond your potential. Not just the norm, but even more than that. And when a person realizes that, he's out of Mitzrayim. He's out of Mitzrayim. And we talked about the tremendous difference between someone who's free as opposed to someone who's redeemed. That was what we learned last week. So we were learning that same concept in Yerushalayim on Wednesday night. And we were speaking about it, how during a shir, sometimes people come to realizations and feel that they really are redeemed people. Must be a ben shel geulan, mishu nig'al. But what ends up happening is that while you're experiencing those moments of feeling redeemed, you start to become busy wondering what's going to be with me when my frum attack is finished after this year. Who's going to show up? If that guy shows up again, then what does it say about what I'm experiencing right now? Was this real or not? Because we're programmed that something which is real must last. It can't ever go back. So moments of redemption don't really mean anything to us, because to us, you're either redeemed or you're not, which is funny, because when it comes to food, we don't refer to food like that. When I'm hungry, it's not that I say to myself, only if I eat something that takes away my hunger forever, that's what I believe in. You take what you can get while you're on the way. But we think that when it comes to redemption, yesh kazeh davar. So this person, while we're learning, this person, a very, very sincere person, stopped the shir. He said, אבל מה כל זה משנה? כי כשאני אחזור הביתה בעוד שעה, אני יודע שאני לא הולך להרגיש ככה. He got really agitated. He said, well, what is this going to matter? Like, not agitated at me, but at himself. He said, what does any of this matter? Because how long is this high going to last? So I have a lot of different types of friends, like we all do. And when I posted today that the title of the shir is How Long Do the Highs Last? Many of my friends got very excited. They thought they'd finally figure out ways and tactics to keep their highs going for longer than they're used to. But in life as well, we really do want highs to last. And in the parshiot of Bo, Beshalach, and Yitro, there are highs which we reach as a people and as individuals that we don't really see again throughout the Torah. There's like climax after climax. Dafka in these parshiot of Bo, Beshalach, and Yitro. Specifically these three parshiot. I don't know of any other sequence of parshiot where there's so many tremendous, beyond this world, above nature, miracles taking place to Am Yisrael, right? Can you think of anything else? A sequence of events like these that happen to an Am? I don't think so. And yet, when we see, you'd think Am Yisrael, it makes sense that they would experience such a high, it would last. At least it would last for a bit longer than one parsha. And in our parsha, how long do the highs last? What is it, one pasuk or two pasukim? It's unbelievable. The kvetching begins immediately after. You know what? Forget that. Go one step back. They don't just begin after Kriyas Yamsuf. They begin already while Am Yisrael has just witnessed the most incredible miracles leaving Egypt. They already happened right then and there. It's incredible. And the question is not just only how do you keep highs going for longer? What is a high? And who detects you? Who sees what comes and happens to you when you stay in that state of mind of thinking, what happened? Was that real? When you start doubting your experience, who comes to you at that exact moment? So we already know, Amalek. We're going to understand to this unique parsha in a very, very different way. I always tell you that I review last year's parshiyot, the classes that we have in recent years, to make sure, not that there be anything wrong with going over, there'd be nothing wrong with doing chazara over any piece we've learned, and sometimes we do, occasionally, but I wanted to make sure, I just wanted to hear what was last year Parshat Beshalach. And we had prepared a whole shiur, but because Daphne Meir was axed to death that morning, when we learned Parshat Beshalach, so we learned a different piece from the Eish Kodesh that year. I don't know if anyone remembers. Yeah. Crazy. So her daughter got engaged on her yahrzeit. And I think the guy proposed in front of the mother's kever. I saw a crazy picture. Talk about intensity. Talk about Israeli youth, what they go through. Anyway, so what we're going to be seeing tonight is addressing this nekuda of how long will the high last, and what happens when it doesn't, and what is bichlal, a real high. And what Rabbi Shlomo is going to do is going to be tying us throughout the whole parsha, not just this parsha, like he does many times throughout the whole Torah. We got more.
Can I say something
We
less
got
heavy
one.
before, we're all on the floor?
You have one more?
Is that okay? Okay, so I took what you said to heart, and I stood up at the Shabbat table, and I gave them our Torah. There were 4 generations around the table, which is incredible. And I had a belt on my dress. I took my late husband's cane, and I said, "This is what the tzaddikim did tonight." I said
Parshas
exactly
Bo.
what you said.
Hello.
And it was very cool.
And
Everyone loved it.
how did you feel about yourself?
It was fabulous.
Oh, amazing.
Because we're never going to be around the table for
Amazing.
that, and I've said that.
Amazing.
So this is the
It's you're amazing.
And
Oh, kol hakavod.
like, smile, yes.
Kol hakavod. Teach me how to live the Torahs we learn. Kol hakavod. Mamash. Wow. Hopefully we'll have the same example, something similar tonight. Bezrat Hashem. Okay. This is how Rabbi Shlomo begins. Shibui, the word should be Le'ili Nishmas Bracha Zalta Bas the father now. Bracha Elka Bas. He has a middle name, his first name was, I think, Choni HaKohen. She was a Bas Kohen. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I told you, Beans, when I went to the bed, so I whispered some stuff in her ear, I gave her Birkas Kohanim. Mamish there. Yeah, it was out of this world. All right.
Please come.
Beshalach. How long will the high last? When does Amalek come and attack us? Vayovo Amalek vaylochem im Yisrael berefidim. And he fought with us in the city of Refidim. So the Medrash says, the Yalkut says, this place of battle was called Refidim. Why? Because Sherafu Yedehem Midivrei Torah. This is the reason why Amalek came and attacked us right then and there. Why was this place called Refidim? That place where Amalek, who resembles that whole world of catching you in your doubt and your self-doubt, that's in a place called Refidim. Sherafu Yedehem Midivrei Torah. The simple translation is that we weren't learning as much as we could have. Rafu Yedehem Midivrei Torah. Rifyon Yadayim. We were, Rifayon in Hebrew means slack. You were slacking. So when you're slacking, Amalek comes and attacks you. But, Rabbi Shlomo says, it's obviously much deeper than this. They were learning, but something was holding us back. Now, let me ask you a shayla that all the Mefarshim ask. What Divrei Torah exactly were they supposed to be learning? The Torah wasn't given yet.
Shabbos and Paraduma
So-
and Dinim.
Right, so that's okay. That's what we know. Chazal. So what, they weren't learning Hilchos Shabbos, and they weren't learning Paraduma. So wouldn't that mean? Wouldn't it be enough to say they weren't learning Shabbos? Divrei Torah is like a very, it's a very broad statement.
They were learning in the caves beforehand. There was some
About Shabbos.
That was about Shabbos.
Well, it was Shabbos, yeah. It's interesting. It's kedai tzarich iyun. What exactly? What kind of expectation did Hashem have on Am Yisrael? Did we have on ourselves to learn if the Torah wasn't even given yet? And Amalek comes and he attacks you in a place called Refidim because it has to do with what we were slacking in Divrei Torah. Now I want to share with you something that will help us, I think, with tonight's learning. My wife and I, our first apartment that we lived on was here in another neighborhood in Efrat, on Rehov Koresh, and we lived there for, I think, 2 years, right? 2 years or 2.5 years. Mashu kazeh. 2.5 years. And here you go, brother. The night before we moved out, and you know that night before you move out of your place and you can't even remember your last name because of all the packing. Do you remember those? It's a very, very traumatic experience. That's a very traumatic experience. Every move is somewhat traumatic. I was so zonked. And a friend of mine called me and he said, "Nu, how do you feel about leaving this place?" And I said to him, "You know what? I really feel that this was like the least amount of Torah that I've learned in the last 2 years." Now that's true because of marriage, and we had a baby in our first year. We brought home our Bechorah on our first anniversary. It was a busy 2 years. But inside I really felt like I was looking at this film like, man, I'm embarrassed. I could have learned so much more. So he said to me, "Stop being such a Baal Gaiva." I'm thinking, what? I just told you that I feel like such a low person. Baal Gaiva walks around saying, I finished half a Shas. I would have liked to finish the whole Shas. That's what a Baal Gaiva would have said. So I barely, He said, "What makes you think that learning Torah in today's day and age is only measured by how many books you've opened?" And when he said it, I was begging Hashem that I shouldn't try to be a cop-out to say, "Oh yeah, you know what, I've been learning Yom V'Layla." That's also a cop-out. We have a concept of learning, and it's farm in the world. But who's to say that there's not a limud Torah, there's not learning Torah taking place every single day of your life, or the possibility of it, no matter where you are. It's a stretch, but it'll help us with tonight's learning. That's the only reason why I'm saying it. Because again, Amalek comes in a place called Refidim, Sherafu Yedehem Midivrei Torah, that they started slacking from learning Torah. So we might have to redefine what learning Torah is, and what does slacking in that area have to do with Amalek. We'll see where we go. The Beis Yaakov asks, remember the Beis Yaakov is the son of the Mea Shilach, Rabbi Yaakov Leiner, Rabbi Yaakov from the town of Ishbitz. The Beis Yaakov asks, why is it that it was only Amalek who came to attack us? What did he know? So Amalek comes from Esav, right? That's the origins of Amalek. And Esav is Yaakov's twin. Don't kid yourself. He's very close to Yaakov. The rest of the world may not know when Yaakov has cooled off a little bit from Yiddishkeit. But Amalek smells it right away. Now that's a very interesting statement. You ever think about that like as much as we would love to like bash this concept called Amalek and Esav, he's very close to us. In fact, sometimes we're not even sure if we're our twin or we're ourselves. But when you do start slacking off, you might be able to hide it from a lot of people in the world. But that voice that comes and says to you, "Who are you kidding?" He senses it right away. Why? Because just in the nature, the way that the world works, Esav, who is the origins of Amalek, is our twin. And twins can sense these kinds of things. They know things about us that no one else in the world knows without us even saying anything. So we see here that whole power of self-persecution and poisoning ourselves with self-doubt is not coming from such a foreign place. It's coming from a place that's very, very, very close to home. And it touches us in such a deep way because we know that we might be able to fool the world, but it's very hard to fool relatives. Especially twins. Family members know us better than we sometimes would like. And you can't pull fast ones on them. They know it. They know who you are. This energy of Amalek, when that doubt comes to you, he's coming from a very close place. Amalek says this. Again, the rest of the world may not know when Yaakov has cooled off a little bit from Yiddishkeit, but Amalek smells it right away. When I'm not serving God with so much enthusiasm, Amalek smells it. He's right there and he says, I'm your brother. You can tell me the truth. I know you're going through changes now. Why are you hanging on to the old tradition? Get with the times. I see you're struggling. I see you want to take the concept postmodern already to the next extreme. You want to be really, today, leading the flag of, I'm the new age. We know you want that. Go for it. That's what Amalek is always telling us. He's not telling us you're a Russia. He's telling us, just don't, stop trying to fool people. Especially stop trying to fool yourself. Now open your hearts in the deepest depths. How strong are my vessels on Yom Kippur? How much Yiddishkeit can I take in on Yom Kippur? On Yom Kippur, I'm taking in Yiddishkeit that is a little bit removed from the world. Why? On Yom Kippur, I'm not eating. I'm sitting in shul, and I have all the vessels to receive the Torah. But the question is, what am I doing when I walk out from shul? Right? That's why Chazal, very clearly, Chazal set us up with 1,000,000 mitzvahs right after Yom Kippur. Why? Because what else would we do with all that light that we're walking out of from Yom Kippur? It probably would have been shattered, right? If we didn't have a place to put it in. So Chazal say, hey, take mitzvah of sukkah, take the daled minim, take the lulav esrog, build sukkah, schach, and all the different mitzvahs. Why? To take all that light that you just tapped into and to place it into somewhere which it could be held and manifested with, right? Through. On Mount Sinai, I have very strong vessels to receive the Torah. I see the voices, I hear the shofar. I'm at the highest level in the world. But today we're living in a different world. How many vessels do you have left? As much as we would love to, in reality, our vessels are not strong enough to take in the Ribbon Shleilam in the same way that we do on Yom Kippur. This is a little bit contradictory to what we've been learning in the mornings with the B'nai Machshava Tova, where the Piasetzner says that when man truly taps into mindfulness, the real deal, then it is possible to have a resemblance of Yom Kippur in your daily, I don't want to say ritual, because that sounds very not Jewish to me for some reason, even though ritual, everything about our religion is ritual, but you know what I mean. If you really were able to tap into mindfulness, the B'nai Machshava Tova says you could have Yom Kippur moments every single day. But Rabbi Shlomo says, for now, in reality, it's not the way it is, right? This is exactly when Amalek comes and says to you, I know you dream about being holy, and you'd love to, but face it, you don't have vessels for it. I'm wondering if each person in this room, and anyone that's learning with us live right now, or that will learn with us later, could stop for a second and try to trace back when this moment happened to us this year, post Yom Kippur. You know that moment where you're a little bit different than the way you were when you walked home from Shul Leil Motzei Yom Kippur, when you could have sworn that this year you're really going to be someone who is tapped into Elokut all day long, all year long. This year is going to be different. But then to just give yourself a little bit of calm and ease and to not freak yourself out completely, you then tap into that zone of, look, I got to be a normal human being in this world. I got to be leveled. God wants me to be balanced. Or God doesn't want me to be a fanatic. That's always the line that's an Amalek line. It's an amazing Amalek line. It's true. God doesn't want me to be a fanatic. What does it have to do with how much you believe in yourself? Of course it's true. God doesn't want you to be a Meshugana. God wants you to be normal. But we know that being really normal is being fully with HaKadosh Baruch Hu every single second of the day, no matter what. So in the name of holiness, in the name of God, I usually cool myself down. That's when Amalek has the best Purim disguise. He comes to you in the name of God and says to you, Hashem wants you to chill out. So it's always good to try to trace back this moment back into this previous year and say, when was that moment that happened to me too? When did I start, in the name of God, start calming myself down, cooling myself down? Now Rabbi Shlomo asks a hard question, in all honesty. If I were to ask you if we have vessels today for the coming of the Mashiach, what would you say? Stop. Don't look in the text. What would you say, Chaver? I want to hear your opinion. Do we have vessels today for the coming of the Mashiach? What would you say?
Personal level or a national level?
You, personal.
I don't really know what vessels we need. I
So
don't
that's
know.
an honest answer. So that means no.
No, it means how do I know? I don't know what we need. I don't know if we have it or not. I don't know what's going to take. I don't know.
I don't know about that. I don't know about your not knowing. No, I really don't know, because I think that the concept of Mashiach is that you do know. You do know inside of you what it's going to take. I think that all of Chassidus, the whole Torah of Chassidus, especially today's, was Yud Shvat. Everything the Rebbe was trying to do was he's trying to say, he's going to attach us through the fire of the mitzvahs, and through Dveikus and the fire of the mitzvahs, you do know what it's going to take. Could be. Entertain me. What else? Does anyone else here think that they, we're so, can you imagine if someone raised their hand and said yes? You know that story when I forget whose Rebbe it was, which Rebbe it was. I think the Noam Elimelech or someone, one of the Rebbe's daughter's weddings, where the Rebbe got up and said, "Only someone who's mamish and tzaddik can get up right now and dance at this next Rikud." So who do you think got up? Absolutely nobody. But then I think the Rebbe Zusha, or I forget which tzaddik, got up and said, "You know what? Everyone else here thinks that they're on the level that they actually know where they're holding. I have no idea where I'm holding, so I'm going to go up there and dance on the dance floor." And that was like a mila, because he at least wasn't trying to hide behind this, I know that I'm so rotten energy, holy energy, right? Again, if I were to ask you if we have, okay, you know what, Effie, forget it, no one's going to talk here personally. On the national level, if I were to ask you if we have vessels today for the coming of the Mashiach, what would you say? And yet I'm supposed to believe every single second that Mashiach can come. But on the level of vessels, that means like...
behind the Kohen Gadol, how is that even possible?
We have the potential to do it. It's just
Potential and vessels are two different things. Vessels is not potential. So, is it unanimous no in this room?
Maybe.
I believe in our ability to do it, but I can't see it.
You're talking about potential.
Maybe is maybe, but we never. If you had this year 20 years ago,
I think
we
that's
all
what...
do thumbs down. Nobody would have said anyone had even a reshit smichat mitzotz of a vessel.
It's funny because 40 years ago, I would think that everyone would say yes.
You know what I would say?
No? Yeah? Of course.
I was around 40 years ago.
Sorry. 50 years. No. 67.
67.
Yeah. 50 years ago, if I asked that question in June 1967
You're right.
or July 1967, I think that the majority would say yes.
In June, yes. By July, no.
So this
Okay,
is
that's
our
really-
parsha. That's what I wanted to
That's
get to.
exactly right.
Okay? June 1967, on a certain level, is Kriyas Yamsuf.
That's right. Definitely.
And after, so you'd think that that during Kriyas Yamsuf, if you ask anybody, do you have the vessels? They'd say, well, I'm walking on water while you're asking me this question, so I think so, right?
Even like Suketan, we have these
Yes.
Moments.
we all come
Moments.
together and,
There was a lot of moments. Yeah.
Moments. When the boys were kidnapped, moments, yeah. Definitely. I was recently, where was I? I was playing somewhere, and Racheli Frankel was on right after me, and she gave a whole, Sarah Batevis, this thing for the girls' seminaries. She transported the whole crowd back to that feeling of what it was like when we were all mamish k'ish echad b'lev echad. It was incredible. It was absolutely mind-blowingly incredible. But for the sake of our shir, June 1967, you asked this question: do we have the vessels today for the coming of Mashiach? Why would we say yes? Based on what would we say yes? That we have vessels for the coming of the Mashiach? Based on what?
the high of the moment.
The high of the moment. What about July 1967? I wasn't around, and I don't know. Were you in Israel then, Jack? Jack, were you in Israel July 1967? No.
I was.
Really?
I was.
Wow. Do you remember?
As a matter of fact, I was.
Do you remember what it was like? My father was here. I should ask my father.
I remember, do I remember what it was like?
On a national level.
I'm not sure I could perceive it on a national. First of all, when I was here in 1967, I was beginning to wonder maybe God really does exist. Okay, it was not. No, seriously, I was beginning to have doubts. I was still an atheist, but I was beginning to have doubts.
That is a vessel. That is a vessel.
It's a vessel. I don't know what it holds, but it's definitely a vessel.
It holds a lot of light, I think. I think it holds a lot of light.
But
wait a second. When we say vessels, what is he talking about?
On water in July.
It's okay, so August. But when we say vessels, let's go back to what does it mean? Do you have the vessels for the coming Mashiach? What does that really mean? Would you know what to do with it?
Because the other word for kli is a kli kibul.
Kli kibul. There's a place to, right, a receptacle, right, as opposed to what? Reik, like reikanut, bor reik en b'mayim, right?
There was the story I heard about somebody a few years ago came to visit Israel and they went to the Kotel and somebody was blowing the shofar there. And they had a kid with them, I don't know how old, 4 or 5. They said, Mashiach's coming. They said, no, it's just some crazy person blowing a shofar. I said, wait a minute, how am I going to ever know?
Oh man,
That might have
that's so sad. Do you guys know the story that Rabbi Riskin told us about the Ethiopian Aliyah? Do you know about this? He oh my God.
They thought that they were coming straight to the Beis Hamikdash in Yerushalayim. That's
And when
what they were programmed. They were very surprised that there was nothing.
Surprised? They were screaming, ripping their clothes, wailing. Yeah. I think this is in Mivtza Moshe, 1985. That Aliyah that came in 1985. So when they came here, when they got here, they put them in somewhere. Rabbi Riskin, I don't know if he was there, or he just told us about this, that they put them in some kind of a Merkaz Klita, and then they're tupim mecholot, about to do Aliyah Regal, because based on their Masorah, Churban Abayis never reached them. They never heard about Churban Abayis. No. So for 2,000 years of exile, they're dreaming about coming to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash. They come here, and they're told, that which kept you alive, you know what each of them must have said that night? He said, you're the cruelest in the world, and there's no way, God, we would have made it if we thought that coming here would be to a Beis HaMikdash-less country. So do they have the vessels? Well, they definitely had the vessels, because by them, there was no longing for something that doesn't exist. There was longing for something that does exist. Their whole for 2,000 years, they were just strengthening the vessel for that which existed, but they were physically far from.
What happened to that vessel once they
I don't know, but that's a question that could happen to us all the time in our personal lives. What happens to that vessel that you once had that was shattered by disappointed dreams? You know, we have that from God quite often. We have that from ourselves quite often as well. Is there still a vessel there? This is interesting stuff. We're gonna tie it.
Thursday when the Beit Knesset in Amona was
destroyed,
and I had 2 bar mitzvahs there, a bris, about
in that shul,
graduations from the Talmud Torah, so many simchas, so many wonderful times, and I was being, up until then I was strong, and then I got this desecration.
Right.
A real desecration of something holy.
It's interesting you use that word, because chilul comes from that word halal, which means empty, space. When there's a chilul kodesh, that means there was kodesh, there was a kli, then there's emptying out of that. That's called chilul Hashem, chilul kodesh. There's a vacuum of whatever was there, and then there was space where there was once a vessel for kedusha, and now it's not there. Yeah, that's intense stuff. Let's go back inside. In all honesty, second to bottom paragraph. If I were to ask you if we have vessels today for the coming of the Mashiach, what would you say? Okay, so now he's going to console all our very pessimistic views that we had right now. As much as I'm hoping for him to come, I have no vessels for it. I think he means on a personal level, right? So Amalek says, since you don't have vessels for it, it's better if you just forget it. Why? Because it hurts too much to long for something which you don't really have the vessels to contain. It hurts too much. So don't want it so badly. Because wanting something that you don't really believe you could hold, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Our problem is that whenever there's an opening in heaven to give us the greatest thing in the world, we flake out. We always think we can't handle it. It's too much for me. You know, that's like, if there's one person I'm thinking about right now, it's Moshe Dayan for some reason. After that sentence, we can't handle it. It's too much for me. You know, Hashem should bless his memory. He has a lot of schiyos in Am Yisrael, but if the 2,000 years in Golus and you finally have Har HaBayit, you don't run with the keys to your enemy. We can't handle it. It's too much for me. By the way, it's not just Moshe Dayan that did that. There were a lot of very, very frum people that were encouraging that move, that they felt that Am Yisrael doesn't have the vessels for it either. You know that, right? Why was there such an isur regarding Har HaBayit for so many years? Till today. Where does it come from? It comes from Kivyachol, so to speak, a realistic place of we don't have the vessels for it. What do you think the whole world of Satmar is based on? It's a very holy place. It might be, we might not see it, but their whole thing is saying, look, Eretz Yisrael is the highest light in the world. Let's admit it. We don't have vessels for it. We'll have vessels for it when Mashiach comes, right? Listen, if you want to really love Yidden, you have to understand what they're saying. Not just knock them off because they say things that you don't agree with, but this is where they're coming from. Why didn't we fully receive the Torah on Mount Sinai? Because we were so afraid that we don't really have the vessels. By the way, we know that based on how the Midrash tells us that when God started talking at Mount Sinai, how much did Hashem, really, really, really tell us? How much did we hear from Hashem? So there's 3 opinions, right? The first 2 dibrot. Another opinion is that all we heard from God was the word Anochi, and then one more word that we heard, or one more opinion is that all we heard was the of Anochi. I have to tell you that right now, as I'm thinking about like we have the vessels or not, and light and this and that, I have to just share with you because it's really sitting in me. You can see this video online, but when I was talking in the beginning where we're dedicating tonight's learning to this precious soul, that bracha, I've never experienced this thing before in my life, that someone is literally, like someone wrote, I never saw a Melave Malka take place in front of me, a literal Melave Malka. There was a livui of a Malka, there was an escorting of a Malka, of a queen, into the next world. I saw a woman with her last breath, her breath after breath, after breath, getting harder, more and more difficult. And I saw people surrounding her that are about to be traumatized. They could either choose to be traumatized by witnessing the experience of death and having shilas on God, how could you make this person suffer? Or not want to see someone in so much pain. And she's surrounded by children, grandchildren, best friends, and some friends I don't think were her best friends. People were there. And they sang her to the next world in the oncology ward in Hadassah and Kerem. So I'm wondering, like, when Hashem looks down at moments like that and he says, do you didn't have vessels? So if all Hashem was looking at that moment was just that room in that ward, it was clear to everyone in that room, you know what, Mashiach could have come and I don't know what it would have been higher. They were singing Eliyahu Hanavi while she's on her last breath. B'meheira yavo eleinu, while someone who's relatively young and is suffering so much is taking her last few breaths. So that was an experience of Mashiach katan aleinu. At that moment, Mashiach could have come and would have said, "Wait a second." We would have said, "Wait a second, come check out what we're tapped into." So. Because what he's saying over here is that at the greatest moments in our lives, we flake out. I experienced the exact opposite this past Motzei Shabbos. And I still don't know what to do with it. I haven't processed it. I mamish haven't processed it, but I can't believe that there was a video taken and posted of this online. You could see this. I just can't believe. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't had a moment.
Listen, it's a very trippy thing, and it's very hard to watch it because you really have to transport yourself to the room in order to experience this. But again, like the greatest moments in our life, usually you'd say we don't have vessels to serenade someone into the next world.
I did.
You know?
Very well.
But you were privileged to do that one-on-one. I'm talking about 30, 40 people around here that weren't Dafka family. It was out of this world, in this world, and above this world. It was an incredible, incredible experience. But I just thought about that because he said, because we were so afraid that we don't really have the vessels. And at that moment, Motzei Shabbos, no one was worried about having vessels or not. It was above that. We thought to ourselves on Mount Sinai, I'm standing on Mount Sinai right now. So of course I'm good. But what will be with me in 5 minutes? That's what I'm saying. Like on Motzei Shabbos, no one was thinking about in 5 minutes from now. It was completely transcending time and space. No one was thinking about that. Friends, we are constantly suffering from this type of thinking. What type of thinking? What's going to be with me in 5 minutes from now? I want you to know something so deep. And these words are really, really strong. Mamash, mamash chazak. Anything I want the most, I'm so afraid won't happen. Okay? When you really love someone so bad, if you meet someone, you're looking for your soulmate, and you meet them, and you really love them, with that love, with that love comes this terrifying feeling of, I am petrified of a reality that this isn't going to work out, or that she won't be into me. Anything we want the most, we're scared to death won't happen. If I won't buy apples next week, so I won't buy apples. If I won't have my favorite gefilte fish on Shabbos, I'll somehow manage. But when it comes to things I want the most, I'm so afraid they won't happen. Let me ask you all a shaila. Is anyone here in this room terrified that at least on our children's behalf, that Mashiach's not going to come in our lifetime? Well, that means that you want it the most. If you don't want it the most, then that's not something that you're so scared of that kind of reality. By the way, I'm not saying this to sound frum, it's just very clear. For our children's age, like this next generation is going to witness the coming of Mashiach. We know that. Not because of any proofs or anything. We know that because we're guarantors to make that happen. We're going to make that happen, no matter what. Right? But it's because we want it that badly, it scares the daylights out of us. If chas v'shalom, it won't happen. We're living in an age that we're not going to compromise on giving our children the same answers of, how come there's no Beis HaMikdash? You know, how come there's no temple? Why are we back in Eretz Yisrael, but we're still getting killed all the time? We're not going to give those cheesy answers anymore. No, it's okay, slowly, this and that. Our children are now asking questions no generation ever asked before. So we know that it's going to happen. We have complete emunah bitachon dat. It will happen, and it puts all the pressure on us. However, together with that wanting it to happen so badly, comes this fear of chas v'shalom. What happens if it won't happen? And here I want you to open your hearts. While crossing the Red Sea, we mamish had the vision of Mashiach's coming. What does it say about the crossing of the Red Sea? Rasa shifcha al hayam ma shelo ra'a Yecheskel ben Buzi hanavi. What a maidservant saw when they were crossing the sea, even Yecheskel, the Navi, the prophet Yecheskel, who was prophesying about Chazon ha'atzamot ha'yeveshot, he was prophesying the highest prophecies. A maidservant on Yam Suf saw higher than that. And by the way, I have to tell you another freaky medrash that I think we learned last year or the year before. But listen to this one. This is really out there. Talk about the experiences we had when we were crossing Yam Suf. It says that all those babies that were thrown into the Nilus, they were chucked into, remember this title? They were chucked into the water by Paro. They spent all those years learning Torah with the Malach in the water. and they rejoined Am Yisrael, well, Am Yisrael was crossing the Red Sea. And Am Yisrael was seeing these children, they were reuniting with their babies, that there was a reunions going on crossing the water. Crazy stuff was going on. Just absolutely crazy stuff was taking place. Out of this world. Out of this world. So what happened? Rabbi Shlomo says it was a vision of Mashiach coming. That's Tchias HaMesim right there. That's Nisei Nisim right there. But what happened? Okay, but what happened afterwards? Sherafu Yedehem Midivrei Torah. We got so afraid because we started to ask ourselves, what are we going to do afterwards? What are we going to do if it doesn't last? Do you know that this happens to us while we're in the high, certain highs? We're busy wondering what's going to be with us afterwards when it's not like this. This happens to us all the time.
That's really the problem. The hard, I mean, how long will the high last? It's not as much of a problem if the high. I think it's natural that there's highs and lows. The ikar is to just keep the high while it's there and let it.
Nachon, because in a world that's confined by time, then that shaila really is a relevant one, because we're all based on, our moods are based on how long highs last, how long lows last. But when you're tapped into something much bigger than that, then that becomes irrelevant. It could last for 5 minutes, it could last for 5 seconds. You're not in the realm of time anymore. But you bring down this shi'abut zman, this enslavement to time. And I see, I got a beautiful call this week from someone who doesn't know what to do because he feels that the minyan he's davening in is just, he doesn't have enough time for kavanah. And he doesn't, it's like, those are the kind of questions we need. More and more of these questions, Because he's tapping into tefillah more and more, and he's realizing it just doesn't work, this pace doesn't work for me, but I have to daven at that minyan because I don't have any other times to daven in. So I think that these are the kind of questions that'll really expand consciousness and raise awareness about what's chashuv and what's not chashuv, because everyone knows when you're really in the tefillah, there's no time. Time becomes just a funny thing to come back to. Funny thing to come back to. We're still, unfortunately, a little bit enslaved to it. I hate that line that said, I didn't make aliyah to still stay in shul till 11:45. I made aliyah so I can be home by 10:15. Come on. Does anyone know what I'm talking about, Bichlal?
We were talking about, I haven't heard that before.
Oh, yeah. Let's get happy again. The same happened, third paragraph, the same happened as we were leaving Egypt. Everyone knows that the word vayehi always alludes to something sad. So sadly, it came to pass that Paro let the Jewish people go, right? Vayehi Beshalach Paro et ha'am. There's all the Mefarshim are asking this question. The beginning of the parsha is such a simcha. Paro finally sends them out. How in the world is the word Vayehi used? So Rabbi Shlomo has like 10 different perushim. He has an amazing thing from the Vishnitzer, from the Bialer. Of course, Ishbitz is all over this one. We're going to see now. We're going to understand. So sadly, it came to pass that part of the people go. All the commentators ask, why is the word Vayehi being used here? Leaving Egypt was the greatest joy in the world. There are 2 million answers, but the Divrei Bina of Biala says like this. There are moments when we have the opportunity to receive everything in the world, but sadly enough, at that moment, we are satisfied with much less, because we may be afraid that what I really want won't ever happen. However, do you realize how deep that line is? We have to say this again. This line, it penetrates through the deepest depths. Again, there are moments when we have the opportunity to receive everything in the world, but sadly enough, at that moment, we are satisfied with much less, because we may be afraid that what I really want won't ever happen. This is different than not believing you have the vessel for something. This is just not really not really believing that the whole picture could really take place. Like everything they ever dreamed of that God wants to give you and more could ever happen. Do you know how much God wanted to give us the night we came out of Egypt? On that night, we could have brought redemption to the whole world. We could have brought the Mashiach. But sadly enough, we were happy to just get out of Egypt. There's a lot of stories that we could go off on over here, specifically how Rabbi Nachman was literally the story of his conception. It's a very interesting thing that we have in the Masorah, exactly what happened in order for Rabbi Nachman to be conceived, and eventually, and also very similar limud of that the tefillahs that were brought down in order for Rabbi Nachman to be born could have done, if it could have done much more for a certain someone. Maybe I'll send that out in a different context. It's not for now. Sometimes we want something so badly, and when it happens, we're so happy it happens, but we don't realize that at that exact moment we can do thousands of more things. These are the vibrations of Amalek. Therefore, during the war with Amalek, Moshe Rabbeinu was holding up his hands. What was he telling us with his hands? Why does it say, Vayehi Yadav Emuna? That's what it says, right? Remember, Hur and Aaron were holding up his hands. Vayehi Yadav Emuna, Vayehi Kasher Gavar Moshe Es Yado. And then when it goes down, when they're up, he's winning. When they're down, they're losing. It seems that's very weird. It doesn't sound like a Jewish concept, right? When someone's standing like this, they're winning. And when it's down, they're not winning. We have like this whole thing of just trying to put the Emunah into Hashem. Why are we now thinking about that? These hands are represent. What is that, Bichlal? Look how he ties in this whole Torah together. Therefore, during the war with Amalek, Moshe Rabbeinu was holding up his hands. What was he telling us with his hands? Yidden, where do you think you're connected to? You're connected to the highest place in heaven. You're connected to the highest place even if your head doesn't reach there. It's beyond what you are reaching with your head. Why? Because the hands are the only function of the body that go above the head. Se'u yedechem kodesh uvarchu es Hashem. To lift, the hands were over here to go up to here. And by the way, I once heard a beautiful teaching that this notion forms nasa v'nishma. When the hands are below you, you're in a world of nishma v'nasa. What does that mean on a tachlis level? When you think the highest you could reach is over here, what you can grasp and what you think you're capable of, you're not really receiving the Torah. You're on a nishma v'nasa level. We're like, well, I'll hear and then I'll do. Eventually it'll reach my hands. But a Yid davens like this because he's reminded that I can go, God gave me hands to reach further than where my head or my intellect tells me I'm capable of doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. According to your head, this high can't last. But when you connect to the Torah of the hands, those worries dissolve. When you remember what it's about. Now again, what does it say about the reed in this place called Refidim? Why is it? What was the lashon of Rashi? What did Chazal say it was? Sherafu yedehem midivrei Torah. That their hands were slacking. Now we understand. What was slacking? Their ability to think that they could live up to all the Torah they were learning. Rafu yedehem. It was slacking. It was all Eitzadas. Amalek says, I have you there. When you're really, really tuned into being that horrible word pragmatic, as if there's anything pragmatic about us as a people living here, surrounded by it's pragmatic. This is pragmatic. It's an illusion that it's pragmatic. It's not pragmatic. It's the most pragmatic, but not on my side, on my level. Sherafu yedehem midivrei Torah. There's a rifyon yadayim, and you think your hands are below your head. Amalek comes and says, I have someone to work with now. This is where I'm going to come and attack you. So Amalek comes to us after we experience the greatest high of Kriyas Yamsuf, and says, if they experience that, and they go right away to kvetching, that means yeshli esek itam. I can talk to them. And I feel very much that Amalek has really been having an incredible time mingling with Am Yisrael post-1967, especially amongst Yidden, all the time. Because forget about those of us that weren't alive back then. Even those that were alive back then are not still in that world of what could have, that they remember that was real and that really was what could have been. So Moshe Rabbeinu, to beat Amalek, to fight back, is Vayhi Yadav Emuna, Vayhi Kasher Moshe, Yari Moshe et Yado. Now we understand it. This wins the war. This beats Amalek. What's this? Hands up. What does that mean? Lamaisa. What does that mean? The highs can last. That was real. That Beshalach, that Kriyas Yamsuf was real. But over here is where Amalek comes and gets you. So, I think I shared this with you once. At one time, in the HAP meeting in Los Angeles, there was a guy that used to show up early to shul, and he would stand in shul in the front like this for 20 minutes, half hour. Now, we met, I grew up in pretty normal world, modern Orthodox worlds, Bnei Akiva yeshivas, and even upstairs in the shul where the HAP meeting was meeting, my father was the chazan of the Beverly Hills congregation, where I was once ridiculed for not wearing my shirt wasn't ironed enough. That's the kind of right? Downstairs, the HAP minion was meeting Rabbi Shlomo's chavra. We started 2 hours after my father did, and I never had lunch with my parents for 4 years because we finished at 1 every single Shabbos. And no one was thinking about the clock. No one. In the davenings of those days, you were there. In that little basement. You never came to the HAP minion? David was there all the time. The prayers that we had there lasted for hours. We were dancing for hours. One guy, Ronnie, I hope to see him soon. Ronnie stood there for 20 minutes. He's like this in the front. Looked so not Jewish. It didn't feel at all like my concept of shul. What is this guy doing?
This is a shul.
Right. What is this guy doing? So he said, I once went up to him, I said, I was realized Shma, אני לא חלילה רוצה, אני לא צוחק עליך, אני פשוט רוצה להבין מה זה. So he said to me, a Yid, he learned from the Baal Shem Tov, a Jew, in order for a Jew to be prepared for davening, he has to focus on the pasuk, Shivisi Hashem lenegdi tamid. That Hashem is always in front of me. And when you have that, mamish charut, engraved in you, then you go and you start davening. So I said, okay, but ma kesher, that's beautiful, but what does it have to do with this? So he said, this spells out, this forms the letter shin. It's a meditation he was doing, right? This is a shin, this tzura, right? It's still a little bit freaky, right? But now with tonight's Torah, I finally have a little bit more peace in my heart that that's something that really anyone can really tap into. Why? Because now we see that the shin of Shivisi is forming hands above your head. Vehi keter leroshecha. This is above your head. This really forms keter, that which is on top of the head. And it's avoda on a daily basis to finally break through this concept of shiabud of etzadas. Never ends. However, there are moments where you're plucked out of there. Yes, they don't last forever. Yom Kippur does not last all year long. And I'll tell you the truth, what happened Motzei Shabbos can't happen all year long, that feeling in the room. But it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to. When you have those real moments, that you just let them take over you, and you trust in Hashem in that moment, that this is real, you don't need them to last. You're not worried how long is this going to last, because you know that just experiencing this and knowing that this kind of a world could exist, of utmost dveikus, is enough to keep you going. The worries of how long things will last dissolve, because you know you can always go back to the power of the hands. Vayhi yadav emuna. Hashem should give us a strong bracha this coming Shabbos of Beshalach, that we learn the parsha again and again and again this year, not just to know beautiful midrashim, which is always very, very beautiful to connect to, but to really figure out how to continue hamshachas hachesed, to continue bringing down the chesed that Am Yisrael was zocher to receive. When we cross Yam Suf, Be'ezer Hashem, every Jew will experience Yam Suf yeh katan alenu. Yam Suf will be nothing compared to what Hashem has in store for all of us. Yeshar Koch. We'll see you all next Monday night, Bezrat Hashem.